Hi everyone, it's Amber here, and I am back for reading Who is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I have this much to go, and I only have 2 days to do it, because my goal was to get it finished by the end of this year. So let's see if I can get that done. Alright, here we go, Chapter 5, Changing Times. Each spring, big law firms compete to hire graduates from the best law schools in the country. Ruth was an outstanding student. She had graduated at the very top of her class at a top law school. Job offers were bound to flood in, right? Wrong. Not a single one came. On their job postings, law firms stated men only. 10, 20, 30, more than 40 firms rejected her application. That's pretty sad, right? Men only. Well, that's how it was back in the day. They didn't think women should be in the workforce. Nowadays, we all have to be in the workforce, pretty much. Not only was she female, but Ruth also had another strike against her. She was a mother. Bosses didn't think a young mom could put in long hours like men did. Finally, with the help of one of her law professors, Ruth landed a job working as a clerk assistant to a federal judge. Then, in 1963, a new path opened for Ruth. Rutgers University in New Jersey hired her to teach law. She became one of the few female law professors in the nation. There was one catch. Her pay was less than that of the male teachers. Men needed more money in order to support their families, the dean explained. Ruth asked if that meant a single man with no children would also get paid less. The answer was no. To Ruth, that didn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense to me either. And it was totally unfair, but Ruth stayed quiet for now. She stayed quiet a while later when she found out she was pregnant again. Privately, she and Marty were thrilled. But at work, she hid the good news behind loose clothes. She wasn't about to risk another pay cut or losing her job. Ruth and Marty's son, James, was born in 1965. Excuse me. Big sister Jane was already 10. The Ginsburg household was busier than ever. Teaching law suited Ruth. As years passed, she began seeing more and more women filling her law classes. America was changing. During the 1960s and 1970s, the women's movement swept the nation. Women joined the workforce in record numbers. Many didn't want to stay at home with children full-time. They now wanted motherhood and a career. Women started to demand entry into men-only jobs and schools. At rallies and marches, they called for the right to be treated as equal citizens. It says, "Women of the world unite." Ruth's generation had accepted the way things were, but now Ruth got ready to fight too. Only not in marches or at sit-ins. She was ready to fight in the courtroom. Many laws across the country treated women unfairly. Ruth understood that even if society was changing, old-fashioned laws still held women back. In many states, a woman couldn't get a credit card in her own name. Nor could she go to a bank and apply for a loan on her own. She needed her husband's permission. Some state laws said it was a husband's right to choose where the family lived. Women were shut out of countless jobs everywhere. And when they did get jobs, they were often paid less or fired for being pregnant. Ruth knew firsthand how it felt to be treated unfairly. Now, as a lawyer, she had the power and skills to fight for equal rights in the court. First, she started at her own school. Ruth helped female professors at Rutgers file a lawsuit for equal pay. They won. Next, she signed on as a volunteer lawyer at the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU is a group that fights for citizens' basic rights. In addition to full-time teaching, Ruth now started to defend clients and go to court. She did it all for free. What Ruth wanted was to do something to make a difference in society. Meanwhile, in the busy Ginsburg home, Ruth and Marty continued living on equal terms. Growing up, I didn't know that it was unusual for both parents to have careers, James said later. People would always ask me what my dad did, and I always wondered why people didn't ask me about my mom. As to whether Ruth was a devoted mother, James said, grinning, Mom was always there when I wanted her to be, and even when I didn't. All right, I'm going to read Chapter 6. Chapter 6, Landmark Cases. One winter afternoon in 1973 found Ruth climbing a set of huge marble steps. Ahead of her towered 16 white marble columns. Carved above the columns was the famous phrase, equal justice under law. I'll show you the picture here before I keep reading. This was the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C., and Ruth was going inside to argue her first case there. She wore her mother's circle pin. Thinking of Celia gave her courage. Still, she felt terribly nervous. She hadn't dared to eat lunch for fear of being sick. A hush fell over the court when it was time to begin. Everyone rose as the 9 justices, all men, dressed in long black robes, walked in. Could Ruth convince them of her case? Her client was Sharon Frontiero, an officer in the U.S. Air Force. Male officers received benefits for their wives, such as payments for housing and medical care. However, the Air Force would not give Frontiero's husband the same benefits. Why? Simply because the lieutenant was female. Ruth's voice wobbled a bit when she first addressed the justices, but it grew steady and firm as she launched into her argument. Ruth told the court that women, not just men, were now breadwinners. A woman's paycheck and benefits were just as important as a man's. It was time for the law to catch up to society. So this is the, what's her name again? Sharon Frontiero. And there's Ruth. Usually the justices interrupted lawyers with questions. This time the bench stayed quiet. The justices were just glued to her, said a lawyer who was present. I don't think they were expecting the sheer force of her argument. Ruth ended with a quotation. The words were first spoken way back in 1837 by a woman named Sarah Grimmick. Grimmicky? I'm not sure how you pronounce that. The quote showed how long American women had fought for equality. I ask no favor for my sex. All I ask of our brethren is that they take their feet off our necks. Ruth's argument convinced the court and won her the case for Sharon Frontiero. The victory was important for every woman in the United States. From then on, U.S. military forces had to give all women, not just Frontiero, the same benefits as men. And in the future, the government couldn't have one set of rules for men and a different set for women. Ruth wasn't about to stop now. See, she searched for other cases, to bring to the Supreme Court. Some involve the rights of men. For example, men who chose to stay at home to take care of their children. In the past, lawmakers assumed all caretakers were female, so they made laws that gave stay-at-home mothers, but not fathers, certain rights. The 9 justices on the Supreme Court were all male. Ruth figured that they might identify more easily with a man's experience. So here's a picture before I read on. It says the Supreme Court justices in 1973. As you can tell, all men. And tearing down laws that treated men unfairly automatically helped women as well. It made the sexes equal, which was the whole point. In 1975, Ruth fought for a father named Stephen Wiesenfeld. He wanted to stay home and take care of his infant son. Stephen's wife had died giving birth, so Stephen was the baby's only parent. The U.S. government said that if a woman lost her husband and stayed home to take care of the family, the government would pay her certain benefits. Yet the government refused to pay Stephen the same benefits. At the Supreme Court hearing, Ruth sat Stephen right beside her. Again, Ruth argued a powerful case. She showed how laws based on gender hurt everyone, men, women, and children. Several months passed before the court announced their decision. Ruth heard the verdict on the car radio while driving to school. By this time, she was teaching law at Columbia University. It was a unanimous victory. Ruth talked about the excitement she felt. When I got to Columbia, I went running through the halls, kissing the students who had, excuse me, I gotta show you this picture. Okay. Who had worked with me on the case, and I am normally a very unemotional person. Altogether, during almost 10 years, Ruth argued 6 historic cases before the Supreme Court, winning 5. She also wrote the briefs arguments for dozens of other important cases. Ruth did something that was incredibly important to American women, whether they knew it or not, said legal expert Nina Tottenberg. There's a picture. Okay, I'm just going to look at one thing here, see how many chapters I have left of the book. You know what? I'm just going to read chapter 7 here, and then I'll be done for today. Okay? Chapter 7, From Lawyer to Judge. President Jimmy Carter, who took office in 1977, noticed something lopsided about the federal courts. There were 97 male judges and only 1 woman. The president began a search for well-qualified female candidates to balance the score. One name kept coming up, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So in 1980, Carter made Ruth a federal judge on a circuit court. It says Ruth with President Jimmy Carter in 1980 on that picture there, where I read on. All right. Not in New York, in Washington, D.C. What an honor for Ruth. Her life changed in major ways. Ruth had to stop teaching, and she could no longer argue cases as a lawyer. Instead, she would sit on the judge's bench in the front of lawyers and rule on their cases. Her personal opinions wouldn't matter anymore. To be fair and just, a judge must decide cases based on facts alone. Ruth and Marty left New York City, their home, for many years and moved to the nation's capital. Marty took a new job teaching law at Georgetown University. At cocktail parties that the Ginsburgs attended, guests automatically reached to shake Marty's hand when the host introduced Judge Ginsburg. Marty had to explain that his wife, not he, was the judge. Did Marty feel jealous? Did he mind leaving his old job and following Ruth to D.C.? Not one bit. That's pretty cool. I have been supportive of my wife since the beginning of time, and she has been supportive of me, Marty said. It's not sacrifice, it's family. Marty was as confident as ever about his role. In a well-known photo, he posed in his chef's apron beside his wife, who wore a judicial robe. Pretty cool. Because he was the cook, she couldn't cook. So I thought that's pretty neat. For the next 13 years, Ruth proved herself a fair-minded judge. She ruled on cases in a group of 3 judges behind the scenes. Ruth worked hard to get the other judges to agree on verdicts, and to speak with one voice. Another huge turn in Ruth's life came in 1993. An opening had just come up on the Supreme Court. President Bill Clinton was looking for a new justice to fill the slot. Ruth was too shy to brag about her own accomplishments, but Marty wasn't. He did everything possible to make sure President Clinton heard about Ruth's remarkable work. It landed her an interview with the president. After talking to Ruth about the law for just a few minutes, President Clinton knew he had found the right person for the job. And there's President Bill Clinton. Federal courts. A federal law is a law that applies to everybody in the United States. Making counterfeit money, for instance, is a federal crime. When a person or group breaks a federal law or goes against the Constitution, the case is heard in a federal court. If someone breaks a state law, the case goes to state court instead. The United States has 3 kinds of federal courts. You think of them set up like a triangle. At the base are district courts, 94 altogether. If a federal law is broken, the case goes to a district court in that state. A jury decides the case. Lawyers who lose can ask for an appeal. That means the case will be heard by the next level of courts, a circuit court. This is the kind of court that Ruth served on. Circuit courts are the middle layer of the triangle. There are only 13 circuit courts spread out across the nation. Cases are decided by a group of 3 judges, not by juries. What if a circuit court disagrees with the verdict of the district court? Lawyers can then ask the Supreme Court to settle the disagreement. The Supreme Court sits at the top of the triangle. Its verdict is final. That's pretty cool. I never knew that myself, and I took history class. I took government class. I never understood it. This makes more sense to me. So the federal courts. So here is the U.S. district courts. There's 94 of them that they were saying. This is the U.S. Circuit Courts of Appeals, which there's only 13. And then there is the U.S. Supreme Court. So Ruth Bader was probably right here in the middle, and then she went straight up to the top here, is where she was trying to climb to. Or she ended up, I should say. But we will read that. It was nearly midnight that night when Ruth got a call. President Clinton was on the phone. He told Ruth the extraordinary news. She was his choice to become the next justice on the Supreme Court of the United States. This is the greatest honor any American lawyer or judge can receive. The next day, in front of the news cameras at the White House Rose Garden, President Clinton introduced Ruth to the world. He praised her as a path-breaking attorney, one of the nation's best judges, and a person of immense character. Then a beaming Ruth stepped up to the microphone. Her eyes sparkled behind violet-tinted glasses. A silk scarf tied back her usual neat ponytail, and her mother's pin, the one she wore to every Supreme Court hearing, shone on her jacket. Ruth thanked out several people, especially Marty, my best friend and biggest booster. In closing, she thanked her mother, the bravest and strongest person I have ever known. I pray that I may be all that she would have been had she lived in an age when women could aspire and achieve, and daughters are cherished as much as sons. Moved by her words, the president wiped a tear from his cheek. So here's the president and Ruth, I'm sorry. There is the pen that Ruth was given by her mom's pen, I should say, that they were talking about. One more hurdle lay ahead before Ruth could take her place on the bench. The Senate still had to confirm her nomination. 4 days of grilling followed. Ruth appeared calm and confident. She answered the senators' questions openly and honestly, even on thorny topics. I hope my answers please the Senate, she said, but in the end, I am what I am. Ruth also talked openly about her life. She told the senators she was a Brooklyn native, born and bred. She related her parents' immigrant past, and she described the hurt of seeing the anti-Jewish sign as a child. Grateful for the United States' freedoms, she said, what was happened to me could happen only in America. Ruth won over Democrats and Republicans alike. With resounding approval, the Senate voted in her favor, 96-3. On August 10, 1993, President Clinton swore in Ruth as a Supreme Court justice. Marty held the Bible for Ruth as she gave her oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. One of the first to welcome Ruth to the bench was Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman to ever serve on the Supreme Court. O'Connor was overjoyed to have a sister-in-law. So there's Ruth, the President, and Marty. And that is Sandra Day O'Connor. All right, so I'll stop there today, and I shall finish this either tonight or tomorrow. So I hope you guys all have a great day. See you in the next video.